was born the 9th of June, 1932, in the Pomeroon. Now and ever, Pomeroon River. I was born.
My name is Albert Virgil Leung. I was born on the 20th day of December, 1920, on Main Street in Georgetown, Guyana.
When did you return? At what age did you return to the Northwest?
Oh, we worked. First, we worked into the shops, what you call buying and selling gold, trading. Then we went on our own, prospecting for gold. And over the years, you found some and you lost some. I started to work in 1939, but before that, I worked in the shop from 35. I was 15 years old. When we went on holidays, we had to work in the shop. Then we went back to go to school in Georgetown. First, I went to the early school in the Northwest. They only took us what was called school leaving. But after we got a school leaving certificate, you had to go to Georgetown to get what's called the Junior Cambridge certificate. Then we went from there. When you got 18, you went, if you wanted to join government, you had to get the senior.
Yeah. Tell me, did you know my grandfather, Dode or Dominic?
No, we heard of him because he was on the lower reaches of the river, and I was on the upper reaches of the river, the Barama. Uh-huh. You see, it was separated by a fall called Tawakaima, which was 1.25 miles long, and it had a drop of about 20 feet, from the top of the river to go down, but all in rapids like coming down. But when you got below the fall, it started to get there, and it became a normal river without any, only fallen trees and everything like that would be in the river. But outside of that, everything else was countryside then. You're working countryside.
I could remember that.
Of course, there was no settlement, From Tawakaima to Barama mouth is 95 miles. And they had 2 settlements that really counted. Oh good Lord, what's the name of this place? Anyhow, there were 2 settlements that counted that where Pokenockers worked. And then when we got right down to Coriabo, as it was called, they had lines that went across to the Cuyuni. You see, the Barama and the Cuyuni ran parallel with each other. So you go trade from one to the other, searching for gold. All the time you're prospecting for gold. The main thing was trying to find. But then when my brother-in-law got ill, and she wanted me now to leave whatever we do and go to run the trading shops for a short spell. That short spell took me nearly a lifetime. The trade, you see, the old man got sick, my brother-in-law, and she had to stay with him. He had to get insulin injections. He had diabetes, and he had insulin injections and everything else while I took over the whole running of the business. So in between now, these gold digging shops were separated by miles apart. Arakaka, which was the central. Then we had 45 miles, 15 and 40, 55 miles from Arakaka to 5 stars. Then from 5 stars, you went cross-country now to the Barama. You see, 5 stars was on the Barima. You went cross-country to the Barama. And from there, we had determination, and we had Millionaire and Golden City, 3 separate claims.
Those are the names.
Those are the names. Yes, Determination, Golden City, and Millionaire. And we made Millionaire our central point. We operated mainly from there. But at the same time, my sister had a partner by the name of Bert. And when the Bert's son was Wesley, the father and son got a lot of breaking up then. And he left his father, and we sheltered him, and he had more experience than us into really working that type of gold. So we joined together. We worked together we bought a stamp mill, Then we bought a ball mill. You know these ball mills. It's a round barrel, with inside the barrel has lifts like, and these balls they range from about 6 inches to little ones, and you put about 500 pounds of balls in this mill, and as it turns, it's a big mill. As the belt turns the mill, these balls go up and they drop on the stone and it crushes it. It crushes the stone as the ball turns, and then the water comes from the top and washes. It has a sieve that the fine stuff goes right back onto the sluice boxes. First it goes onto the plate, but as it passes the gold plate, you know, the mercury plate, it holds the gold there, and it passes down and it enters a sluice box, so that nothing must be wasted. And there were 5 sluice boxes with little bars in them. And that goes right down all the way. It's collected. The heavier material, which is the gold, remains at the bottom, and it goes right down. Then that is called a backsand, and you have to keep moving that backsand away so that the water can flow and keep running.
Now you were on a different part of the Barama than
the upper Barama.
You were on the upper Barama.
Upper Barama.
And Dode Da Silva was on the lower Barama?
You see, it's 100 miles, and he was about midway. He had Guyana, and what's the other name? Another name, 2 adjoining claims, and that's what he worked.
Yeah, he called one of his claims Sweetheart.
That's where they worked, which was halfway the river then, from Tawakaima to the river mouth, which is the Winey, where Barama branches out from. And that was midday. Guyana and Pipiani was the name of the place. That's where they worked.
When I said we got married, my Bert told Dad, of course, that I needed nothing to go to the goldfields, just my clothes. So with a suitcase of clothes, I started off, and we went by the little
Steamer
first by steamer
from Georgetown to the Morawana.
And then from there,
Morawana we get into the bateau and the launch, and we went topside.
How did I go to? So many years passed. How did I go to the first? Didn't we go? I went by the little plane.
No, that's later. We went that little plane. Landed in. They landed in the pool. You remember that?
Listen to me, Bertie. You'll be forgetting because the years, you know, it's been a long time. Remember, I always said that when I got to Morawana, we left Georgetown in the little small plane.
We went by boat.
No, love.
No. I don't remember. We were shuttling from Morawana to Barama. It's 45 miles flying straight. You remember?
Yes.
We were shuttling.
The first time I went in to the goldfields, we went on the small little Brahman.
Yes. No, it wasn't the little Bamchuri. A little aircraft that flies. It used to hold 5 people. And they had the engine at the back.
And that took us into Morawana.
They landed in Morawana.
Yes.
What years is we're talking now?
1951. 51. Because I remembered seeing this Amerindian woman just where the plane landed at the stelling, as we call it. We called it a stelling. And it was Clarice.
Oh, the famous Clarice.
Famous Clarice. And I said, she had to see.
She had to see me skipper married.
She had to see me. She had heard that he was getting married, and she was in the Northwest, and she came to see me. Yeah, she remained with us, and of course with Derek and the family until she died.
But in life,
so I went into the. We went into with the small plane, and from there I walked in to Millionaire. It was 8 miles. And you have to walk through swamp, hill and swamp.
And what's on your foot?
Well, let me tell you. My sister-in-law, this wasn't a big trip. Well, this was just 8 miles. and I must have worn maybe. We used to buy those
Rubber boots.
the little
Oh, I know them. Yeah.
what you call men wore them.
Long boots we used.
Not long, they were up to here.
Oh, yeah.
halfway.
You know, small with laces. And those were okay to walk in. But then after I stayed with we were at Millionaire, Bertie left me with Tekka and Everett while he went on his own
24 miles away again.
to prepare Marabunta.
Which is on the
And it
Barama
was
now.
all, you know, it was all, you know,
It took me nearly 2
had
months
to,
to
it had to
clear.
be cleared
You know, had to clear
started
the
to-
trees and level the land back.
and build a little
And build a
house.
little- You had to clear the land first so that you can get to sink the shaft down.
By the way, with a cutlass.
How are you clearing this
Yes.
How are you get a bulldozer?
Yeah, the bulldozers hand, pickaxe and mattock.
You know those big saws cross.
And the saw, to get lumber, you had what is called a pit saw. But we saw that we cut it before I took up Joan. We had the lumber cut because we used to use the lumber for sluice boxes and everything else. It was
So Bert cleared Marabunta, built a little house, and then came back for me. So we were walking in skirts because that's what we wore in those days. And my sister-in-law made me buy what they call Wellingtons, right? But lo and behold, that was not the best idea.
the sand used to
Because
get into the
as
creek.
you went into the creeks, you know, it's swamp
swamp,
and it's
creek.
hill. Swamp hill you're going through. The sand gets into it. And you have to take it off continually and wash it
Because it was confusing.
and empty the sand out. So I never wore it again. I wore the small minor boots, we used to call them, minor boots in those days, so that you could stop, take it off and wash it and put it on back.
You can shake it off quick.
Because you're going, you know, in and, you know, sand and mud and everything. You just got to stop when you meet a good creek and wash your shoes and put them on back.
And as you're having this reality check,
Yes.
walking through this and the difficulties it must present, what did you think you'd gotten yourself into?
I just kept going, and I kept praying that I could climb the hills.
We had fun with her doing it, right?
But
And there are no other women, I'm getting, not very many.
no, me alone. I was the only woman in the lot.
She was the only woman. We had 65 men working, and she was the only woman. Oh,
Well, they had the two claims where Everett worked and we worked.
3 and 2.
But when we went over to Marabunta, I was alone.
You issued rations to them.
What were these rations?
Rice, mostly rice, flour, peas, oil, salt meat, mostly. Salted cod, salted fish, and salted beef. We used to get this thing by the barrels.
They established a big grocery store, right? You had a big shop. In that shop, you had from a needle to an anchor. When the weather was good, you brought in barrels of salt beef, barrels of rations of every kind, oil and everything. Because you only got those up by boat in the rainy season.
May, June, July, the 3 rainy seasons in the Northwest. So that the river comes above all, and the boat, we have this Archimedes motor on the bateau. And you would bring in all the stuff, oil and everything else, and put it to once. And when that was at Taukaima, and then from there we carried it up further to get to Millionaire. Between Taukaima and when it was 40 miles.
You had to travel by boat and land.
Both the places you're
Because
going.
you had the Amerindians bringing the stuff on their backs. So you had
We
to
call them druggers.
druggers.
They drove from the store to where we were working. They take 2 days drogging, because it's 100 pounds they got on their back, and they would they would walk about 10 or 15 miles for that day, and the next day they bring in the stuff. But woe betide the time when there is a spree going on, when the cassuri is moving. Oh, you had it. But they built a little barbecue, a barbacoa, and they put the thing there, their groceries, well covered, well covered. And they got 60, got to drink on the spree. Went to the parties.
I remember that.
And you know, they know they had drums. You know, they call it a sambora. And when this one, they send messages like that, Kasuri is here. So this gang moves from here, and the whole family, man, women, and children, move the tribe with. Oh, that they make the drink. This drink is made from the bitter cassava. They have a little calabash, and they burn the cassava, and they chew it, and they put it in little balls and everything. But that is boiled, you know, when they put it in the big pot, wooden, it boils, and then when they boil it now, that's to. The spit is the yeast. That make it.
Afterwards, I mean,
After
they learned to put a little yeast.
You give them a little yeast. They don't have to use
sugar,
that.
so they didn't have to do all that chewing.
But as the young girls used to chew, you never see them chewing, you know.
No.
They have the calabash and they go like in the field and everything, and then they come back and
But
they
that
throw
was
it
their
out.
way. That was their way of life, yes. Listen, it's very, very hot when you're walking the trails. Very, very hot because you're under the trees, even though it's the light is coming in. When you have the rainy season, you might be going, you might
May,
be
June, July is the rainy season.
You
Then
might
get
be
the dry season from July
hard to walk
October.
at that time. Every day you're wet. Every day you cannot get your clothes dried until you reach an opening, you know. So every day we put on the same wet clothes.
How did you sleep in this wetness?
In the night we stopped and made a camp. At the end of the day,
Explain to me, describe to me how you make this camp.
Plant sticks, like one stick up and there, and in between they put a long pole across. And then the middle of that pole, they put another stick standing.
with just Bertie had to send them out to get the palm leaves. Like this, just enough to keep the rain out. Enough to keep the rain out.
What about mosquitoes?
We didn't have mosquitoes.
Thank God.
Yes.
But outside, when you stop, you use thatch, which is made by Manicole.
Yes.
They leave. Because we got the Indian to cut it, and they bring it in big bundles.
They're sent out.
And they bring these bundles, and then they thatch quick.
They're cutting the
Because
wooden part of the camp.
they split the Manicole leaf in half, and they put them together. And one row, then you put a row Dalibana leaves, then you put another row until you get to the top.
If you look at it,
And then they cover it.
fancy thing because
Well,
you
all
have to
around is
spend the
open, you
night
know.
there.
All around is open. But then,
Just shelter you for the night.
then as you get a little bit more settled, you put floor in, and then you take the logs, and you split it with shingles like about 2 feet. Or,
When you walk through, you're walking,
yeah.
right? We're going from one place to the next, but we have to stop at night. We have to sleep. You walk until you find a suitable creek where you can get water,
Yes.
because you must be near water. And then you will build a little camp for the night. Remember, you might stay 1 day or 2 days, but it's just enough to keep the rain out, because you have hammocks.
Yeah.
So you're going to, just enough to keep the rain out. They didn't have mosquitoes there.
No, mosquitoes are never in that area. We never had mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes.
Yes,
No.
other bugs.
They got a little one. We call it a maibuli. It's a little.
You have to avoid these
Oh
things.
God! When it's sticking, you got to pull
There
it
are
out.
all these things, and they do, because we know we had One time we were traveling through, and Everett went out that night to catch fish, and he must have gone through, a nest. Didn't know. He brought them in the camp with Tech and the children, and for the night they were crying out. The next morning, when it was light, you saw they're embedded in their skins.
So you had to take it out. You take a little warm thing, and you just touch it, and they loose. And you keep, because if you pull it, the little claws pull, and it gets sore. It becomes a little infected. So you just touch them with anything warm, and they loose. And as they loose, you don't the fire like would burn them, and you have it done there again.
People always worry about snakes.
Oh yeah, you have to be very careful. You got to never cross the timber. Let your foot go. You stand on the timber and jump over, because the snake go under the timber to keep where the timber falls. The timber falls and it's clean. You understand where the timber falls, so the snakes pass there. So if you get on top of it, even if it's there, it doesn't worry you, because you jumped over there.
No.
But we have terrible snakes in that area, though. I see it by one fella bought with, he was coming up with not Flavio, what was the other one? All any of them, man. And the snake bit him, and he thought they had some stone that they said, we put it on. Next morning, the man stiff dead. This time we had everything, but they said, no, the stone will stop. Well, you can't force them not to.
Well, the most they could have done was to cut it open and bleed it.
And you take
because what else was there?
potash, which is Condit's crystal, and you rub it in as much as the thing. That would sort of prevent the poison from really going into the system. But outside of that, it was a rough life. There was no doubt way about it. The rainy season, for instance, will be traveling season, where you're bringing all the wood, the oil, and the food, in bulk. We bring the beef in barrels, and the salted fish.
It comes from Georgetown.
It came from Georgetown to Morona,
and then by boats
up
to wherever the destination was.
Board moto.
It used to come all the way to Marabunta. And then from there, we had to get it. The druggers used to take it on their backs, because that is as far as the boat will come. And then they'll bring it in. That is why we had the shop, so we would stop it. And when the weather was dry, we got nothing.
You live, that's why you buy stock. You
have to stock up.
When the river gets dry, it's a terrible time if you get caught in the drought. What we call it when it's dry out, because you timber, you lifting this boat, all the load, you take it to lift the boat, push it in the boat again, meet another set of timber, you pull it again ashore until you get up.
Yeah.
Yet we are very careful. Don't forget, we are very, very careful, because I knew the damage, what would happen. And there was no doctor. The doctor was 100 miles away.
We lived without doctors.
And you say a lot of prayers.
You live without doctors and hope for the best. Yeah. Because if you're sick, you have to walk out to the airstrip. Now from Marabunta to the airstrip was 27 miles.
And you're sick.
And you're sick. If you're very, very strict, they have to take you on a stretcher. Well, we never got, thank God, we never ran into those problems.
Fever.
We got terrible malaria. Well, we got medicines from Georgetown.
We came to Georgetown.
We were well equipped with medicines for malaria.
Dr. Hugh or one of them would treat you. You have various drugs
that we took with us, and we drank it.
Then we got later on. We got what the Americans used to use in the war, Atibrin, and the yellow ones, and that kept. But when you take too much, your skin get yellow,
But we did try to, we boiled our water.
You try to be careful. Just around in favor.
That cure everything. That used to cure everything.
And we drank Epsom salts of all things.
Yeah.
The food, you told me you had saltfish, you had beef, you had rice, you had peas.
Yeah, so you cooked.
You could get, I mean, I like saltfish and I like all these things, but I don't know, would you eat them for months and months on end?
Yes, you have to.
And what else was there?
Nothing.
When we meet, you plant it sometimes. You had a little farm.
Wait.
You have to wait until it starts to grow. Then you suddenly become.
You couldn't get, you see, the Amerindians, they will have bananas, but they need those bananas themselves to cook and to eat. They don't bring it in and sell it to you. You have to plant cassava and plantains and bananas and yams and fields and wait on it.
Well, when you have those going, it's easy.
The rice.
You have rice, and we use a lot of yellow peas, split peas, and we use a lot of that.
Yes, and you cook things like dal and rice. You cooked a lot of soups with and everything was done. The only meat available was salt beef and pigtail, which you had to soak out. You have to soak out, yes, up to this day, because they kept, because they were so cured with the salt, they didn't go bad.
You got to remember, you can't leave what you're doing to go and hunt.
Sometimes they will pay a guy and send him out to hunt.
You send out a man to hunt. Sometimes you bring in a ooty or maybe a labber. If you know how to hunt, you see the labber bores a hole, but he has 2 or 3 blowholes connecting. So the Indian would get his wife pushing some branch with leaves in the big hole, and the stupid would come out round to see what. And the husband stay one side as he come up to shoot him.
But I never ate any of
She ain't like no bushmeat at all.
You didn't cook it then?
Yeah, she cooked for me.
I cooked it for Bertie, but I never ate it. And I mean, what was in those days, you had just a bit of garlic, if you're lucky. And if the garlic, remember, you're waiting on the boats to come in. Sometimes you're running out of everything. But there was always cashew and salt.
Cashew was the main thing to make pepper pot.
Yes.
Yes,
You had
always.
That's what the local people did.
Yes.
Always got it.
Yes. Well, we didn't keep the pot going. We made a pot of pepper pot, finished it. Gladys was 3 miles away. And she made really lovely cassava bread.
Living with the shopman, and she would make nice
cassava bread for us, but we never bought from the Amerindians.
She would make special.
She would make for us. And then we built an oven. We got flour, of course, yeast, when you're established.
How do you build an oven?
Well, let me tell you.
You build an arch.
I'll tell him about the first oven, because I had to do the baking.
Box.
No. You got a drum, an oil drum, and they burnt it out, of course, from the oil, and they had to clean it because, had to be, went through a stage of cleaning it up. And then you got 4 big rocks. You set it on it, right? And the fire at the top, and you have put some bars across, and that was your oven.
I bet you it baked beautiful.
It baked bread. It used to bake.
Taste like
Oh yes. No. They burnt it. They clean it thoroughly. You have to. When the oil drums are to be used for anything, you have to burn them out and clean them out thoroughly because they wouldn't taste.
But it must take a real knack to know. I mean, now we put a certain temperature, we know a certain time it's going to be okay. But you must have a certain kind of
Yes,
knack.
we knew. You lighted the fire at the bottom and you lighted the fire at the top and you allowed it to burn away. And that the drum became really hot. And you put it in. But when I was settled, John Bernard built me a nice little oven. It was like a little igloo.
You should see how beautiful that
Just
thing can
imagine it. It is made of sand and clay, and it was like a little igloo. It had an opening in front and a little blowhole at the back. And I would light the firewood in it and leave it for 2 hours. 2 hours to burn out. And then this mud oven became really hot. Then I had to rake out the coals. You know, you have to, and then you put in your bread.
Oh my.
But I knew how to, you know,
Survival.
I knew how to do it. I mean, you know, when it was cooling off, you had a little, well, there was a, what is it called? What was it called? The little hole at the back. It was to either keep the heat in, or they had a little,
You close the hole.
close,
Keep it or keep it, right?
Yeah.
yes, they made it out of the rice bags, and you just plug it up.
That was real primitive.
Yes. But I used to bake, you know, I knew how to do it. I could put my hand in that oven and know when it was ready. So you had to, now if you wanted, John Menard brought me a few chickens, and then we built a little pen, and we started, you know, getting eggs. And
That's
you have
the beginning.
you have to really look. You have to really watch those
the salapent and the eggs.
The eggs. You have the salapentas, and at night the bats.
The bat used to kill them. The vampire bat would bite the chicken foot and they'll bleed to death. Then we get lime trees. You cut the limbs with the pepper, with the thorns, and you put them to the opening. So if the bat comes, it tears its wing and you can't get it.
Did you enjoy this life? Was there pleasures to it?
I never heard about
She was young and romantic.
Listen. Remember we got married. You went where your husband went. You shared his life. I walked through a lot. It wasn't easy. I used to be wet from morning until night. When they were out, when we stopped in the evening, and you had to stop near to a creek.
Yeah.
And the men have to go and get the camp built, because we have to have a place to sleep at night. And we made a fire. We knew how. Well, they will, you know, you got a stick where you could hang the pots on.
Yes, I know.
Yes, well, they got it.
Pictures of it then.
And we gathered the wood, and we began to cook rice.
Yeah.
You know, we would cook a pot of rice. And I mean, you have to go to the creek, wash the rice, and bring it back. You know, there is nobody. I mean, if you're alone, you're doing it alone. Or Bertie is sending one of the guys to help me. And you fry up corned beef. Well, that was the standing thing. We used to get good stuff. We used to get a lot of canned stuff, sausages and stuff.
I am still in the initial stages. I talked to the older people, to Uncle Clarence, so talk to you and find out the stories that you have to tell about it. And I want to retrace these steps of my grandfather going into Barama. So I would like to go there. Now, I'm hoping the only way I could do this with help, and I'm hoping Alan Caldera, who lives in the Pomeroon and who is related to us.
They would be good people to ask.
He would be a good person to help me go, and I imagine we would go by.
He's one of the the guy.
Mary Caldera.
He marries
Grandchildren.
Yes,
great
grandchildren.
Yes.
I think he's younger than I. He must be a great grandchild.
Yes.
And his father is still there. Martin? Is it Martin?
I don't know.
I met him.
Well, we met when we went to the Pomeroon with Clarence and Jean, and we stayed 2 days at Gavaya's place.
Well, same place I stayed.
Yes, we did meet one or two of the Calderas.
Yes, he was there. He takes care of the place. He's the same fella. And he's very reliable, so I'm hoping he will help me, and we'll get an expedition. I'll pay them, and we'll go maybe by boat and however to go there. Do you have advice for me, though, to tell me what I should do or how I should do this?
Well, you have to have a very reliable
Where he
crew.
worked first, where your grandfather worked, was at Pipiani, Guyana. That was where he started.
No, he's asking, how is he going to prepare himself to go on this trip?
advice for me as I go
There-
He's the leader,
well,
the leader has to do
But
it.
Only
the
what
guy
they will
that is
teach you
taking you
first
will have to-
people tell you a lot of things. They got plenty gold. fooling you.
I don't want any.
No, no, he doesn't want
I don't care
What he
about the
wants,
gold.
this Caldera boy will have to arrange transportation, proper boats in which you will travel. And you will have to have a crew with you.
Yes, and boat.
Because you have to have bowmen, you have to have the one
How
that...
bad is the river to travel? Is it easy
They,
to travel or rough?
not the it's the trees that fall across the river. Nobody clears it but you. You got to clear for yourself as you go on.
You will meet the rapids.
And the rapids are pretty long.
You should know.
And when the water is low, it's these trees that gives you a problem, the fallen trees in the creek. So you either had to cut a branch where you can pass under or over the trees. And then you keep going.
In one trip, when we were coming down, we were leaving Millionaire,
We live in one river to go to
one river to go to the next. And we started off with 3 laden boats with everything we possessed. And a smaller boat. Patrick Leung was 16 years old. And he had the boat with the dogs, the ducks, the chickens, everything that we were carrying. And as we traveled, the water began leaving us, the rivers began to get dry. We had to build camps, unpack everything, build camps, put them safely to the best of our ability. One thing, like nobody ever stole anything in those days.
Yeah.
And we came down to one boat that just was able to hold it. I can't remember how many of us was on this trip. It took us 3 weeks on the river.
to come out.
3 weeks traveling. Derek was a little boy then. Took us 3 weeks. And then we came to Barama mouth. And Auntie Juliet was at Barama
Yeah, I remember.
in those days.
How long do you think it would take to go from the Pomeroon, from Martindale area, from where Martindale School is, to Barama? How long would travel is that?
Depending on the speedboats you're going with.
According to what you keep going, how you're going. If you have a good boat with a good engine, it doesn't take very long. But what keeps you back is having to clear the trees as you go. That kept you back.
For you to go where Uncle Dode used to be, must be,
If you might
I
want to
don't
go back
think
to where your grandfather used to be at Pipiani, that's halfway between Tawakaima and the river mouth.
that is a real forest area.
That's real. You're really in.
You'll have to get people
You
who
got to
really
get somebody
know,
who knows.
who knows the
They
area.
got a lot of these fellas who work in the river, and they will be able to carry you easily.
Yes.
But you have to get good, reliable people who are
To go
not
with
going
you.
to halfway tell you they're turning back.
Oh, yes, man, that's this and that.
As soon as some of them got a
Remember
little
that
bit
when we
distressed, they leave you,
started
you know.
off, no matter how hard it was, we completed the journey.
Yeah.
We had
to complete
You
the
had a
journey.
destination.
Yes, we had a
we
destination.
had a pretty good crew that used to go around with us. I had men that worked for years and years. We had a half Indian fella named Dampa.
Yes, he was an
That fella could drive
boatman.
through the falls in the night. I don't know how he's not hitting these rocks. Like he can smell it. I used to smell coming down full speed. You see, he is at the steering, the helmsman, and he had his nephew at the bow. And he with the paddle, and then they will be coming like you will hit the rock, and then he braces it like that.
You see, in those days, Agnes, so many people were going to work gold.
Every young man was.
Yes, they were going, and they knew, and they did help each other out.
They don't last very long.
But now they're making plenty of gold in the river itself by diving.
There is a lot of gold
Not
coming out
not
of Guyana, but
diving
they
and
have
dredging.
better equipment now.
They-
Of course.
Because the Brazilians are
That-
coming.
we went back when I went back into it. I went back into save gold again before we came to Canada. I went back into. I built a beautiful dredge. It had a 45 horsepower engine driving.
And that was not in Barama. That was in the
It's in the Barama side. And we
no.
walked.
Where you went when you all were dredging was not
No,
the
Mazaruni.
Mazaruni.
Mazaruni is where we worked near the mount of the Mazaruni, you know.
If you are going to make that trip, it got to be well planned, and you got to know what you're about.